You're watching Barnstable This Morning. I am joined by Sandy Gifford. Sandy is the Transportation Director for the town of Barnstable. So excited to be chatting with you today. There are so many things I think that parents sometimes maybe don't know, or, it's just, sometimes there are things we don't know about. So want to inform parents about all things transportation. One of the things, let's talk about first, if we can, the making of the routes. How does the transportation department really work out those routes?
Great, and thank you for coming. Great to be here. I'm excited. A lot goes into building a bus route. We have to look at where all the kids live after people sign up for their bus pass, of course. And it takes about, to do the whole entire district before school startup, good 6 weeks to get routes really down. And we look at a lot of things. Where kids live in relation to the bus stop, to the school they're attending, and they change every year because we have, fourth graders that go into fifth grade, we have sixth graders going to seven. So there's a big changeover every single year, and then there's a big change about who applies and who wants to get on the bus. So after we kind of look at all of that and centrally locate the stops, we put all the bus routes together, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of, when you think about you're transporting over 4,000 kids on a daily basis to and from school, and everybody gets there safe. That's really what people need to see, is the great job that the bus drivers do, because they're such a key piece.
I'm thinking about, you said that number 4,000
Yes.
children. That's huge. I can't even imagine trying to put that all together and make it all work smoothly and on time.
Yes.
The other thing I think about sometimes is, during the winter times, I really feel for a lot of the drivers, because they have to deal with all kinds of road conditions.
Yes.
Especially last winter was a really tough one for them. What should parents know as we head into the winter about stops and safety and snow? Because sometimes when snow comes, it really does take up a lot of that roadway and space for the bus stop.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. It's last winter, we never want to do that again, but I hear from the Farmer's Almanac it's not looking too good, so I'm a little scared. A lot goes into that. Usually the superintendent and I talk about 4 o'clock in the morning. I've talked to the DPW. It's hard to make a call because, as you know, this is Cape Cod. So we could be getting 3 inches and it turns into 6 inches and it turns into 10 inches. And what I like parents to know, especially on a really bad lot of snow like we had last winter, bus stops are not fun places to slide a sled down a snowbank, because you're going into the road. And we want kids to be safe. Like you mentioned, the roads are narrower. It's harder for buses to pass. We had a lot of roads that were icy, and you can't get 2 cars by, never mind a school bus, which you can see is pretty wide. So a lot of folks were really good about letting the bus pass. And I think that parents need to be more vigilant, if they can. There's a lot of working parents that can be out there with the kids at the stops. And of course, we're bound to run a little bit late when roads are in that condition, and a lot of parents were very understanding to that fact, that sometimes we have to wait for people to pass. We're getting down a road that we're sliding slippery on. It takes us a little bit longer to get the bus routes done, but I think safety is paramount. The kids need to be safe at the stops. They need to be standing vigilant, looking for other cars that might not normally, you don't expect someone to slide, and it does happen in bad weather. So we really want them to be aware of that.
Yeah, that's got to be a stressful situation for drivers when they're dealing with that, and they have that safety in mind. They have a bus full of children, so they want to make sure everyone stays safe. Right. So this may be something too parents want to talk to their kids about. Sure. Hey, when you're out there during the winter time, you have to take some extra precautions than you would maybe in the spring. Absolutely.
Good point. I mean, walking to and from, we know the sun angle changes as the seasons change. We know it's darker in the morning, it's darker earlier at night, sadly. I mean, the summer's going to go away, we're now in fall, and there's already a time change, and they really should be aware of that. They're used to walking to the bus stop in the daylight, and now it's going to be dark, and then you add bad conditions, road conditions to that. It just gets so much worse. We want them to be safe. And the bus drivers are great with that, so.
Absolutely. Now, when I think about different age levels of students, I also think about kindergartners, and I know kindergartners are the only age group in Barnstable Public Schools that actually, if you have to greet your child, a parent has to be there to meet the kindergartner. What happens in the event that a parent is running late or may miss that bus drop-off?
Well, we don't want them to miss the bus drop-off. That's really important. But, I mean, things happen. I mean, just as buses get stuck in traffic, parents get stuck in traffic, parents get stuck late at work. We totally understand that. We want you to be there. If you can't be there, rest assured the bus driver will not let the child off without being met by an adult. someone has to be there to take that kindergartner off the bus as a safety precaution. You know, we want a 5-year-old trying to go to a bus stop alone. So, I mean, the drivers are great, and then what happens is they call it in, and then we call the school and alert the school, this child's coming back to the school, and then the parent gets the phone call, this is where you have to pick up your child today.
Right. And just make sure, as long as everyone knows that's the process, yes. Try as hard as you can not to have that happen, but if it does, it's not the end of the world, and the child will be transported right back to the school.
Yes.
Another question I have for you is, every kid is required to keep their bus pass on their backpack, make sure that's visible. Why is that such an important thing to have?
That's really important. Before we had bus passes, we had kids where we're kind of getting on buses on and off, any bus you wanted to. We really didn't know who was on what bus, and then there were load issues. You know, we'd have to guess at how many people were going to ride the bus. I think a lot of people remember when we had, you know, we didn't have that. We had, you know, kids where we'd have high school kids, which are older age group, but the little kids would get on and go with their friend, and we had parents who didn't know where their kids went. So it's really important that the child has that bus pass, the driver knows who it is. And the other key thing to that, Sarah, I didn't mention, was kindergarten has a different color bus pass. So it's very pronounced to the bus driver that this is a kindergartner. You need to sit in the front, I need to have someone meet you. And the driver has a roster, and that matches up with the bus pass. So we know you're supposed to be on this bus, this is where you belong, and we want you to get on the correct bus, because we have them set up for so many seats, and that's all we can do. So we don't want to overload buses.
Yeah, and so many times, I feel like everything we really discuss goes right back to that safety. It's that circular safety issue, and again, that's just because of safety.
Yes.
I know a lot of parents sometimes will say too, oh, well, you can go over to Aiden's house after school, you can just get on his bus, but that's actually not allowed. Tell me why that's a really big issue for you guys.
Again, it's about safety. You know, you made a great point. It's always about safety. If we don't know you're not supposed to be on that bus, there are certain factors where we have to issue what's called a dual bus pass, which people can request an alternate stop. But it's really, there are so many families that are split custody. You know, one's got to go to mom's, one's got to go to dad's, and then there are parents who work who need a licensed daycare. We totally understand that. But if we don't know where your child's supposed to go and it's not on that bus pass, we don't want them going there, because you're not going to know where your child is. Again, it's about safety. It's really important that they adhere to the bus pass, and they can't just get off at Johnny Jones's house or whoever. It could overload the bus. Sometimes, we all know, kids like to listen to their parents. Sometimes it doesn't happen, and they decide, I want to go to my friend's house today, and don't tell mom. And as a parent, you'd be really worried about where your child is.
Yeah, you wouldn't know.
We wouldn't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So very important that a lot of these policies are in place to keep that. I know you really make a push in the middle of summer or early summer even, I think, to get parents to go ahead and fill out the bus application if they're planning on using the bus service.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about why it's so important. I know you talked, it takes a long time to put those together, so I'm assuming that would be the reason why you want those in so early.
Yeah, that's huge. We had a deadline usually around June 1st. This year it was June 12th. And we liked parents to get their applications in because, as I said, it takes about 6 weeks. So in order for us to process them, after we get them, it's the whole month of July, the first 2 weeks of August that we're still putting bus routes together. Then we don't know who's going to move into the district. And we want people to come here, and that's great, but we have to have that sort of cushion there that we do. So we build the bus routes based on when you say, you know, you want the bus. When you come in later, you're very apt to be not on a bus that is closest to your home because the bus is going to be full. So we really want you to get that in there early, because the people who get that in, it takes that planning step to put the routes together, to look at the bus stops, make sure everybody's safe. The other issue we kind of have is we don't know parents who can go out their back door to a stop that might be closer because they go through the woods. We don't know that unless you tell us that. So we're looking at, based on where you live, the closest stop and who's taking the bus, and it's centrally located for everybody. So a little suggestion to parents might be, hey, in the years past, I've always taken this corner. It's safer for me to get to. Our map may not show that. So they can also let us know that. That prevents them from going back and forth. So it's a lot of planning.
Yeah,
a lot of, we don't want to guess. We want to get it right, and we want to get it right the first time. We don't want you to have to keep coming back, and we like our parents to come in, but it's really an inconvenience for them. So.
And I'm not too sure how long you've been doing this, but I know recently you've been doing, I think, bus pass pickup at a certain school. I think usually you go to the intermediate school.
Yes.
And that's really convenient for parents because then they don't have to come to the little office here in between the high school and Barnstable Intermediate School. So when does that typically take place?
Well, that's always about the third week in August, thereabouts, depending on this year. I think we were August 25th and 26th. We're trying to give parents as much time as we can possibly give them to get in and apply so that they can come to the one big location. And we do give out a majority of our bus passes at that location. It's great, like you said, it's small to come here. Parking's not wonderful. So we thank the intermediate school for letting us come in there for 2 solid days, and we're there all day long. And we also get a lot of folks who are new move-ins, which are great because they'll hear about it and they'll come in and they'll say, look, I just moved here. What do I do? We give them the application, we sign them up. So I'm thankful for that. After that, they have to come here and deal with the parking, but I mean, they're welcome to come here anytime. That's the process. So I mean, it's great that we can get it in there. Like you said, it's got the space. That's what we need.
Let me ask you this question. This year, my family, we decided not to do busing. Okay. We live very close to both schools, which is very convenient. But what if in the mid-year I decided, it's really not working out. We were tried to go without the bus, but now I need to sign somebody up for bus service.
Sure.
Is that a possibility for parents to sign up?
Absolutely. Parents can sign up anytime throughout the year. Generally speaking, we usually have a little bit of space so we can move buses around, and it's unfortunate that it inconveniences other parents. Kids get used to being with their certain friends on buses, but there's a necessity at some point to move bus routes so that we can try to transport everybody who applies. And that does happen. But like I said, there is some room. You can apply at any time. You're going to get on a bus one way or the other if you decide that's what you want to do.
But going into that process, know that when you do apply, it's not going to happen immediately. You're not going to have that bus pass that day or the next day. There is a process.
There is a process, yes. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Thank you for bringing that up. We do, and the reason that we have that, this is not mass transit. These are school buses. So these are stops that are assigned based on the use, where the kids live, and who's using the bus. Where if you were to go to get on mass transit, this is stop A, B, C. That's the only stop you can go to. You might have to drive to it or whatever that is. Here, it's more of a very customized routing, if you will, that you can get on with a bus and you can get on where you live or nearby. And that process is looking at that bus. Is there room on the bus? Then they have to process their payment if they're a pay student, and then we have to process their bus pass. So it goes through a computerized system. We assign them. That way the driver has the correct information on their route sheet. The person has the correct bus pass. So it's not an overnight thing, and I think there's a lot that goes into that parents probably don't know.
Awesome. And of course, if you have any questions about transportation issues, anyone can definitely call the transportation office.
Yes.
Thank you, Sandy, so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sarah, for having me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sandy Gifford is the Director of Transportation Services for Barnstable This Morning. I'm Sarah Mantle.